Hi, welcome back. Alright, so it's time to start working with the marching cymbals a little bit. But before we dive into actually writing for them, the first thing I want to do is actually go through and just do a little bit of defining in terms of the various sounds that are included with the library, just so you can more or less have an idea, since everybody has their own way of labeling sounds and what they call the various techniques. Just want to kind of go through and do a little bit of defining just so it's more clear when you're writing with using the marching cymbals. You'll know what sounds to use when you're using a particular technique. First thing to note is that there are ensemble and solo sounds for pretty much every sound in the marching cymbal sets, as well as 16, 18, and 20 inch, as well as the cymbal line all mapping that includes all three if you want to be able to alternate between the different sizes. Let's go ahead and jump in, talk about the various techniques. We'll start at just using the ensemble sounds here with the port crash, which basically is just one cymbal being held, and then the other one just being crashed out away from your body. Then there's the orchestral crash, which is just your standard orchestral crash. Flat crash, which is where they're just both held vertically and crashed against each other. The crash secco, we've got two crash chokes. Crash choke secco, which is just a short, dry sound. And then the crash choke fat, just a little bit longer. And the vacuum suck, which is where you hold one cymbal and then put the top cymbal kind of farther out, and then you just pull them in together. Then we've got three variations on the sizzle suck, which is similar, but you actually crash the cymbal and then push the top cymbal away, but while keeping them together. You can kind of hear what happens, and then you pull it back towards your body. And we've got three of those. And then just your standard sizzle sound, where you just press the cymbals against each other and essentially just let them vibrate. And this will vibrate until the note ends. So that's pretty cool. We've got our tap sound, tap halfway. Then the tap choke sound, which is just a tap where you actually choke the sound like with a crash choke. So tap, tap choke. A crunch choke, which is similar to a hi-hat, but rather than having the back edge of the cymbal touching and then just clapping them, both cymbals are actually apart, and then they're still being crunched together and keep them held together, almost like with a hi-hat when you clap them together. And a hi-hat choke would be where the back edge is touching and then you just close it. A ding is tapping the edge of the dome on the inside of the cymbal with the other edge, with the edge of the other cymbal. We got the click, which is essentially one cymbal is choked and it's being both cymbals are choked rather, and then just being tapped together, not being allowed to ring. So it's kind of a cool little short sound. Then we've got two zing sounds, one that happens a little bit slower. So here's the slow, and here's the faster one. So it's more or less just a speed thing, depending on the sound you're going for. Then a scratch in and scratch out for your sweet little cadence hip-hop effects. Then we've got kind of three different roll sounds. We've got one that's the flat roll, where the cymbals are essentially being held flat against each other vertically, and then just being kind of rotated in the same direction. We've got the circular roll, which some people might call a penny roll, which is where the one edge of the cymbal is always touching, but they're kind of being rolled against each other. And then the tremolo, which is where the cymbals are essentially kind of being just quickly smacked against each other, pretty close, but being held pretty close together, but being smacked together. And then the whale call, which is where you're putting one edge of the cymbal inside the dome of the other cymbal, and then just scraping to create this cool little metal grinding sound. So it's a pretty cool sound. Almost kind of has a bowed cymbal effect. So that's it as far as the sounds go. Now let's do a little bit of entry. I'm going to get my simple entry tool here. And I'll start by entering just a half note port crash here, ensemble port crash. And then let's put a little sizzle here. I think that'll work well with that buzz roll we've got going up there in the tenor part. See, I'm gonna scroll up a little bit so I can see the snare part. I think I'm gonna put a quarter note rest here on the downbeat. Hit my 0 key on the numpad. And then I'm gonna put a couple of 8th note sucks here on beat 2. But they're going to be solo sucks, not the ensemble sucks. So you'll see it actually puts them down on a different line, so you can easily tell which ones are ensemble sounds and which one are solo sounds. And let's see, then maybe a tap choke to kind of line up with that snare shot up there on beat 3. Again, this will be a solo sound. Actually, let's make that one a quarter note. There we go. And then maybe a ensemble sizzle suck here, a quarter note on, let's see, I'll have that line up right with the downbeat. Cool, so that'll end up right on beat 1. So let's hear what we got going on here as far as cymbal sounds go. Cool. Alright, so that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll be covering the idea of changing the start time of sounds like zings and sucks so that they can actually start early enough so the peak of the sound is at the proper moment. So we'll see you next time.